what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I thought we'd sit down and talk about something pretty controversial that is currently going on with the Spyro Reignited trilogy. I thought I would also use this video to talk about this subject and the bigger picture of it. Mainly because this is worrying for not just the Spyro Reignited trilogy, but I think it's also worrying for the future of physical copies for video games, whether it be for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, or just really physical copies for video games in general. For me personally, this is pretty worrying because I'm a little bit of an old school gamer. I absolutely love physical copies. There's absolutely nothing better than having a physical copy opposed to that of just having a bunch of data saved to your hard drive. And there's just something about getting a physical copy, you know, like seeing that box art, seeing the back of the, you know, the box art with all the descriptions and little preview pictures, and then opening it up to, well, these days we get, you know, an anorexic manual, but we used to get thick manuals. And then of course seeing that glorious disc, there's just something about that. Anyway, jumping back into the subject in hand, last week some pretty interesting information came out to do with the Spyro Reignited trilogy. Over on the official website, it was explained that basically games 2 and 3 require download via internet. Now, this is pretty much telling us that Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage and Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon are likely going to be included with the physical as download codes, opposed to just being put onto the disc. Yes, that's correct. Spyro 1 is the only Spyro game out of the 3 that is going to be on the disc for your physical copy, which is pretty strange. So let's talk about this. When you get a physical copy, you expect the entirety of the game to be on the disc. Current days, we're used to receiving things like day one updates and patches, but for the most part, when you buy a physical copy of a video game, you expect that game in its entirety to be on the disc day one. Not 1/3 of it, not 2/3 of it, the entirety of the game itself. In Spyro's case, this is different because, of course, only 1/3 of the game is actually on the disc when you buy a physical copy. The other 2 games are going to have to be downloaded. Now, Activision actually put out a bit of a response towards this whole situation, as recently a lot of people have been talking about this. This is what Activision had to say about it. The global launch date of Spyro Reignited Trilogy is September 21st, and we're excited for fans to play all 3 Reignited games on that day. As with most games today, downloading an update after purchase is quite common. The language on packaging and on the web is to let players know the requirements for Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Now keep in mind, this is a response to the situation in hand, the situation of 2 games not being on the disc and only 1. Yes, this was Activision's response to exactly that, which really, I think that this response has only further angered people and hasn't really clarified really anything. They didn't even talk about the fact that there's only 1 game on the disc and the other 2 need to be downloaded. It seems to be that Activision are just simply trying to wipe this to the side by saying that, oh, day 1 updates are actually quite common with video games these days. And yeah, you wouldn't be lying when you say that. Day 1 updates, well, they're common. It's what you expect when you put a disc into your system these days. The difference here, though, is it seems to be that Activision are trying to wipe the whole not including number 2 and 3 on the disc to the side by saying that the reasoning behind this is because of a day 1 update. I think they're essentially trying to claim the fact that both Game 2 and Game 3 are considered to be that of your just traditional update, which really doesn't make sense whatsoever considering that Spyro 2 and 3 are part of the Reignited trilogy. Like I said, that's literally 2/3 of the game that isn't actually included onto the disc. Now when it comes down to it, we know that both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One uses Blu-ray discs. You can fit a decent amount of stuff onto Blu-ray discs these days. Yeah, they're pretty big. We have the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy, which included all 3 of the original Crash Bandicoot games on 1 single Blu-ray disc. We have games like Skyrim, massive open world games, and Fallout 4 that are contained on 1 single Blu-ray disc. God of War, a massive game, contained on 1 singular Blu-ray disc. What I'm trying to say is there really isn't any reason as to why both Spyro 2 and 3 can't be on the disc alongside Spyro 1. Keeping in mind that the Reignited trilogy is a sort of remake from the ground up of PlayStation 1 era-based games. These games aren't massive. The space that they take isn't really overly too big, and yes, granted that there is brand new textures, brand new lighting, all of that, that to take into account, again, there really shouldn't be any reason from keeping the other two games from being on the disc. The Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy would be the closest thing to the Reignited Trilogy in comparison. So when we look at the N. Sane Trilogy, the size of that game comes in at about 24 gigabytes. This is without any other additional content or patches. Now I do believe that Spyro is a bigger game than Crash, just when you look at the levels of Crash Bandicoot and compare them to Spyro. Crash Bandicoot's level design is definitely more linear. You follow one direct path usually, whereas when you look at Spyro, the levels in that game are more so kind of mini sort of open areas. They're not open world to any degree, but they are small open areas that you can explore in all directions. So I would say the Spyro Reignited Trilogy would likely come in around the sort of 30 gigabyte area mark, and with the dual layer Blu-ray disc being able to hold 50 gigabytes of data, again, there's really no reason why they couldn't include both number 2 and 3 onto the disc as well. Now I mentioned at the start of the video that I wanted to talk about the bigger picture towards this, because I feel as if Spyro is going to be one in amongst many games that will eventually start taking this route, the route of not including the entirety of the game that you're buying on the disc, but rather only having a small portion of it, and then once you put the game into your system, it then downloads the rest of the game from the internet. This ultimately worries me, but it's something that we just really cannot stop. I think that eventually we will be in a 100% digital age, where things like physical video games and cases and manuals will definitely be a thing of the past. So don't be surprised if in, say, 6 months' time we start seeing other video games doing the same thing that we're seeing with the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. I think this is the start, and I definitely feel as if for the next generation of consoles we will likely be seeing more so based digital stuff. I kind of feel as if physical based games could be getting sent to the graveyard for the next console cycle, but of course we'll have to wait and see. Personally, this is something that I don't want to happen, but I only know that it is inevitable. It will end up happening eventually. Games will eventually get to a point where the size of them are just so massive that they just cannot be contained on a disc. Keeping in mind as well that it's also cheaper for developers to go with the route of distributing their games on the digital platform opposed to actually distributing their games on discs physically. So it does make more sense from a business money standpoint for many different companies to just focus on the digital platform, but I feel as if the way that Activision have handled this is pretty poorly. I feel as if there's really no reason, like whatsoever, from holding back 2 out of the 3 games. This could also come down to a development thing, but I also feel like it's not that, because they're already advertising that 2 games need to be downloaded out of the 3 on their website at the moment. So with already seeing them advertising this makes me think that yes, this is how the game's final product will be packaged. However guys, so that's all for today. Just a small little discussion about the Spyro situation at the moment, and on top of that I also wanted to talk about the sort of future of physical games. It seems like they're slowly kind of creeping out of existence, and that really does suck. I'm a collector for myself, so kind of seeing the physical age sort of deteriorate, and with already seeing developers taking steps towards that digital only age is a little bit scary, especially for me personally. So in the comment section down below guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions towards this. Are you team digital or are you team physical? I would absolutely love to know. However guys, I'm Cynical, hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.